So we live in an era of, like, unprecedented access to health information, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have the entire sum of human medical knowledge just sitting in our pockets.
Right. You've got search engines that can answer literally any biological question in milliseconds. We have online clinics, telehealth.
Yeah, way more access to, contraceptive education than any generation in the history of the planet.
Exactly. So as we dive into this massive stack of research you sent over this week, I want to start with a hook that honestly makes absolutely zero sense on paper.
Okay, lay it on me.
Given all of that access, all that technology, why does the United States have the highest rates of teen pregnancy and abortion in the industrialized world?
Yeah, it's the ultimate paradox. You look at the data, and the correlation between information availability and actual health outcomes is, well, it's completely broken.
Broken is like an understatement.
Yeah.
The numbers in these sources are a massive slap in the face.
Mm-hmm.
Our rates aren't just a little higher.
Yeah.
They're double the rate of the United Kingdom.
Wow.
They are 4 times the rate of France. And get this, 8 times the rate of Japan. 8 times.
It's staggering.
When I read that, I honestly had to put the papers down. Like, we are failing spectacularly here.
And that failure points to a really uncomfortable truth. The access to information that we love to brag about, it's largely an illusion.
Wait, an illusion? How so?
Well, or more accurately, that factual medical information is being entirely drowned out by a much louder, much more aggressive, and vastly better funded signal.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that signal, that overwhelming noise, is exactly what we are going to dissect today.
Exactly.
So we spent the week poring over the research you provided, which is heavily anchored in the findings of Dr. M. Gigi Durham.
Right. She's a world-class feminist scholar. She spent over a decade looking at the collision between gender, media, and youth sexuality.
And her book, The Lolita Effect, serves as the roadmap for our deep dive today. And frankly, the picture she paints is terrifying.
It is terrifying because she systematically proves that this is not like a cultural accident.
Right. It's not just kids these days.
No, it is not an organic evolution of kids just growing up faster. What we are dealing with is a multi-billion-dollar, completely invisible force.
Okay.
It is an intentional global infrastructure explicitly designed to hijack the minds of children.
So we are going on a mission today. We are going to dismantle the 5 invisible shackles that transnational media corporations use to trap young girls.
Let's do it.
We're going to look at how these entities take innocent children and methodically, deliberately, turn them into lifelong anxious consumers.
We are going to expose the exact mechanisms, the corporate marketing strategies, the neurological wiring. Because once you see the blueprint underlying the media you and your kids consume every single day, you really cannot unsee it.
I want to start with a visual from the research that immediately sets the stakes. Picture this.
Okay.
A 5-year-old girl knocks on your door for Halloween. You open it up, holding the candy bowl. She is wearing a tube top, a micro miniskirt, platform shoes, glitter eyeshadow. She proudly announces she is a Bratz doll. Now, the question is this girl power? Is this a child expressing her autonomy? Or is she the victim of a highly calculated corporate hunt?
That is the exact visceral shock Dr. Durham uses to frame the crisis, and it's a vital question because our immediate instinct is to just brush it off, right? Like, oh, it's just harmless dress-up.
Yeah, exactly.
But we have to ask how that specific aesthetic became the default for a 5-year-old.
You see it everywhere. It's a relentless barrage. You walk through a standard suburban mall, and you see toddlers, literal toddlers who are barely out of diapers in Abercrombie and Fitch thongs.
Oh, yes.
Thongs that have the words eye candy printed across the front.
It's awful.
Or you go to Walmart, like the most mainstream retailer on earth, and you find junior girls' panties that say, "Who needs credit cards?" stamped right across the crotch.
Let's just sit with that sentence for a second. Who needs credit cards? When a major corporation prints that on underwear designed for a grade schooler, the implication is staggering.
It really is.
They are actively selling the concept of transactional sex to children. They are normalizing the idea that a girl's body is a currency to be traded.
I was reading this and thinking, how on earth did this get past a boardroom? Like, who approves that?
Well, here's where it gets incredibly cynical. It wasn't an oversight.
It wasn't.
No, it's a foundational business model. The sources outline a very specific marketing strategy. In the corporate marketing world, it is known as KGOY.
KGOY.
Yes, kids getting older, younger.
Now, wait. Let me push back on this a little bit. Because a skeptic listening to this might say, look, Kids have always wanted to act older.
Yeah, they have.
I mean, I used to put on my dad's oversized suit or my mom's lipstick. Isn't KGOY just a corporate acronym for a natural phase of human development? Why is it inherently malicious?
That's exactly the defense of the corporations use. But it's a false equivalence.
How so?
Playing dress up with your parents' clothes is spontaneous, imaginative play within a safe environment. KGOY is a deliberate, multi-billion-dollar, systematic blurring of the lines between adults and children for pure profit.
Look at the consumption data from your sources. Children today consume an average of 6.5 hours of media a day.
6.5 hours. That is essentially a full-time job.
Exactly. The media is raising them. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a transnational corporation.
Okay, I'm the CEO.
Right. Your mandate is infinite growth. You need a fiercely loyal, constant consumer base. If you wait until a girl is 18 to sell her anti-aging cream or push-up bras or diet supplements, you've lost 18 years of potential revenue.
Wow. So you just start earlier.
Yes. The KGOY strategy is about pushing highly sexualized adult consumer habits down the age ladder.
So they're cultivating a base of beauty and fashion buyers before those kids even reach kindergarten.
Precisely. They are taking the profound anxieties, the insecurities, and the hypersexualized aesthetics of adulthood and drop-shipping them directly into the preschool toy aisle.
That's terrifying.
They aren't responding to kids growing up faster. They are forcing them to grow up faster to open up a new demographic market. And what's utterly bizarre about this is the environment the parents are living in. As I read the sociological surveys in this stack, it felt like reading about a parallel universe.
Oh, the disconnect is massive.
Parents desperately want to believe their children exist in this pure, sexless bubble. But the data from the sources is a massive reality check.
It is a severe cognitive dissonance.
One of the most shocking statistics Dr. Durham points to is that 1 in 5 children under the age of 14 has had sex.
Yeah.
Let me repeat that, because it defies everything we want to believe about childhood. 1 in 5.
And yet, when you look at the companion surveys of the parents, the blindness is absolute. 90% of parents are completely oblivious to the sexual realities of their kids' lives.
90%.
Yes, they are living in an absolute fantasy of denial.
It's like living in a house where the first floor is completely engulfed in flames and the parents are upstairs arguing about what color to paint the nursery.
That's a perfect analogy.
And because of that adult denial, because parents are too panicked or squeamish to talk about biology and sex factually, it creates this massive void.
A void that the media is more than happy to fill. You know, children are naturally curious. They are experiencing biological changes. They have questions.
Right.
But if the adults in the room abdicate their responsibility because of moral panic, the kids turn to the only source that is always talking to them, corporate media.
But the script the media provides is completely lethal. I was reading about what actually goes on in middle school hallways,
Right.
and the rumors are absurd and dangerous.
Oh, they really are.
Kids genuinely believing that, like, jumping up and down prevents pregnancy, or that a plastic sandwich bag works just as well as a condom, or that douching with a soft drink is a valid contraceptive method.
It is a profound crisis of ignorance. We leave them completely defenseless, stripped of factual knowledge, and then the media swoops in and hands them a twisted, commercially driven roadmap.
And the entire foundation of that roadmap is built on a very specific, carefully engineered illusion.
The Lolita illusion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This brings us to a historical pivot point in the research that I found just fascinating. We have to deconstruct how a 12-year-old victim of horrific abuse became pop culture's ultimate symbol for a, quote, willing, seductive little demon.
It is arguably one of the most brilliant and simultaneously sinister cultural rebranding campaigns in modern history.
Let's look at the source material.
Yeah.
Vladimir Nabokov wrote the novel Lolita in 1955. The main character, Dolores Hayes, is 12 years old.
She is a child.
A literal child. And if you actually read the text of the novel, she is a powerless, tragic victim.
Yes.
She is manipulated, held hostage, and repeatedly raped by her stepfather, Humbert Humbert. She has no agency. She is trapped in a suffocating nightmare.
Nabokov did not write a romance. He wrote a tragedy. He wrote a deeply nuanced, disturbing psychological horror story about a predatory man.
Yeah.
Dolores Hayes did not seduce him. She did not control him. She was prey.
But the consumer machine got a hold of it,
Yeah.
and they completely inverted reality.
They aggressively stripped away the victimhood. Because, you know, victimhood is not profitable. Trauma doesn't sell low-rise jeans. Despair doesn't sell perfume.
So they took the trauma and they repackaged it into empowerment.
They created a false, highly lucrative myth They rebranded Lolita into a baby nymphomaniac, a knowing, willing coquette who controls adult men with her raw, inherent sex appeal.
It makes my skin crawl.
They took Humbert's sick delusion, the absolute lie he told himself to justify his crimes, and they made that delusion the actual celebrated blueprint for modern girlhood.
That is deeply chilling. They validated the predator's worldview and then printed it on a t-shirt.
And they sold it back to the victims. They sold it to young girls under the guise of girl power. They turned a tragedy into a highly profitable narrative of faux liberation.
Right.
The Lolita effect isn't about natural sexual development. It is an artificial, imposed framework that actively damages, limits, and commodifies a girl's healthy growth.
And as the sources detail, this specific effect, this overarching illusion, is maintained globally through 5 specific myths.
Yes.
5 invisible shackles that girls are forced to wear. Let's break those down one by one. Myth number 1. Hotness is justice.
This is a big one.
I want to frame this with a paradox from the research.
Yeah.
You have these elite, straight-A high school girls, varsity athletes, classical musicians, girls who have every conceivable advantage and talent. And yet, when surveyed, they universally agree that being effortlessly hot is vastly more important than any of their actual hard-earned achievements. How does an honor student decide her brain is worthless compared to her body?
Because the media has successfully established a single absolute monopolistic currency for female worth.
The tyranny of hot.
Exactly. It completely obliterates everything else. It overshadows intellect. It overshadows athletic talent. It overshadows political awareness or kindness.
Wow.
The media sends a relentless, nonstop, 24/7 message that hotness is the absolute highest marker of value. You can be brilliant. You can be a prodigy. But if you do not conform to this narrow standard of hot, society tells you that you are failing as a woman.
And this isn't just some abstract psychological burden. I think the most alarming part of this research is how it alters their actual physical reality. Like, we have to ask, can watching highly sexualized TV actually change a girl's physical life trajectory?
The medical and sociological research is unequivocal here. Yes, it absolutely does. Kids who consume highly sexualized media are exactly twice as likely to engage in early sexual behavior.
Twice as likely. That's not just a margin of error.
Yeah.
The media acts as a direct behavioral trigger.
Because it provides them with a script, right? And it's a script stripped of all consequences. The media portrays sex as purely fun, impromptu, glamorous, and completely necessary for social survival.
It skips all the heavy stuff.
Completely. It erases the emotional weight. It erases the biological risks of pregnancy. It ignores the reality of sexually transmitted infections. It gives them a script where the only goal, the only measure of success is to perform this concept of hotness for an audience.
And that performance requires props. Which brings me to a detail in the research that literally blew my mind. The mainstreaming of sex work symbols.
Oh, this is so disturbing.
We aren't talking about niche adult stores here. We were talking about Tesco, a major mainstream family retailer. They sold a peekaboo pole dancing kit in the toy aisle.
A pink plastic pole for children.
Complete with tiny garters and fake money to stuff into them. In the toy aisle.
Yeah.
Right next to the board games in the building blocks.
Yeah.
Or look at the Bratz dolls designed for preschoolers, wearing fishnets, busty ears, and heavy club makeup.
Margaret Talbot wrote an incredible piece in The New Yorker that perfectly captured this. She described these dolls as looking like pole dancers on their way to work at a gentleman's club.
Yeah.
But they are aggressively marketed to 4-year-olds with the tagline, "Girls with a passion for fashion."
Let's dig into the underlying mechanism here. What is the actual psychological impact of handing a 4-year-old a toy with a garter and fake cash? What did that teach her about the world?
It teaches her that bodily exhibition is the only true path to social power.
Right.
It translates girls' natural curiosity and sexuality into the explicit visual metaphors of sex work. It trains a child, on a subconscious level, to believe that her value is entirely dependent on displaying her body for an audience, and that validation comes in the form of an economic exchange.
The fake money is the tell.
Exactly. The fake money is the tell. It is grooming them for a specific subservient role in a consumer economy.
Which leads us perfectly into the second myth. This is where the physical demands placed on girls become mathematically impossible. Myth number 2, the biological trial. Or, as the research frames it, the $160 billion trial.
This is where we see the absolute physical absurdity of the media's ideal.
Let's do the math on the ultimate media idea, the Barbie body.
Let's do it.
The sources ran the numbers, and if you magically transformed a standard Barbie doll into a real flesh-and-blood human woman, she physically would not be able to stand up.
The physics are a complete violation of human anatomy.
If you scaled Barbie to human proportions, she would be 5 feet 9 inches tall. She would have an 18-inch waist.
Wait, an 18-inch waist?
Yes, an 18-inch waist, a 36-inch bust, and 33-inch hips. And she would weigh precisely 110 pounds.
That is just, wow.
Compare that to the average adult American woman, who is about 5 feet 4 inches and weighs 163 pounds.
The medical reality of those Barbie dimensions is horrifying. A woman with those proportions would not have enough body fat to sustain a menstrual cycle. Her reproductive system would completely shut down.
So you're in a state of medical starvation.
Furthermore, her center of gravity would be so severely altered by the massive bust and the tiny waist that her spine couldn't even support her. She would likely be forced to crawl on all fours.
That is...
She literally could not walk upright.
I was trying to visualize that when I was prepping for this. A woman forced to crawl because her body is so disproportionate. And yet this impossible, broken, starving, physically incapacitated physique is the only body deemed acceptable by the media.
The curvaceously thin anomaly.
Right, so we have to ask the critical question, why? Why do mainstream women's magazines shout, "Love your body," in huge, empowering letters on the cover, but then page 2, page 3, and page 4 are plastered with extreme diet pill ads, liposuction clinics, and articles on how to lose 10 pounds in a week?
I know, it seems crazy.
I would just chalk that up to hypocrisy. Just editorial disconnect.
It is not hypocrisy. It is a highly tuned symbiotic business model. It is the anxiety industry.
Follow the money.
Always follow the money. Let's look at the capital flowing through this system. 17 magazine, targeting teenage girls, made $101.9 million in ad revenue in a single year.
Over 100 million.
Yeah. And the global beauty industry, cosmetics, skincare, diet aids, relies on roughly $160 billion in profits annually.
$160 billion. That is the GDP of a small country.
And that entire economy is built on a foundation of self-hatred. If women woke up tomorrow morning, looked in the mirror, and collectively decided they loved their bodies exactly as they are, entire sectors of the global economy would collapse by noon.
So the mechanism is basically create the disease, sell the cure.
Precisely. They use digital airbrushing, Photoshop, extreme casting, and lighting to create a completely fabricated, digitally impossible standard of beauty.
Right.
They then present this digital lie to young girls as a baseline reality. This systematically induces massive, widespread psychological anxiety, eating disorders, and body dysmorphia.
They engineer the insecurity from childhood.
And then the advertisers step in as the saviors to sell the cure. Diet pills, gym memberships, skin creams, cosmetics, plastic surgery.
Wow.
It is a perfectly closed, devastating loop. Create the wound, sell the bandage. And the bandage is explicitly designed to fall off, requiring constant lifelong repurchasing.
But there's an even darker layer to this myth. Because this ideal isn't just biologically impossible, it is aggressively, intentionally exclusionary, based on race and class.
It enforces a strict, archaic hierarchy. The media ideal, the pinnacle of this $160 billion pyramid, is overwhelmingly Caucasian. It is blonde, it is blue-eyed, it is light-skinned.
And when this specific westernized aesthetic is exported globally, the impact is devastating. It goes way beyond just feeling bad about yourself.
Dr. Durham refers to this as a form of transnational aesthetic colonialism, and the lengths girls will go to in order to conform are horrifying. In Africa and India, the relentless media messaging that lighter is better pressures millions of girls of color into buying skin bleaching creams.
And the research highlights that these aren't just harmless lotions. They contain highly carcinogenic chemicals.
Yes.
They're literally risking cancer, stripping their skin of melanin just to edge closer to a Western beauty standard.
Or look at China. The sources detail young women enduring excruciating leg-lengthening surgeries.
Like lengthening.
Yeah. They are literally having their leg bones broken, separated, and stretched on metal racks for months, enduring unimaginable pain, just to be a few inches taller to fit an imported Western standard of beauty.
That sounds like a medieval torture device.
It essentially is. The physical agony and the financial ruin these girls take on is catastrophic.
It is a $160 billion tax on simply existing in a female body.
Exactly. And it is all built on a manufactured myth.
Which brings us to myth number 3. And for me, this was the most unsettling part of the entire deep dive. The extreme fetishization of youth.
Yeah, this one is tough.
We have to look at the historical timeline here, because it proves that our current standard of beauty is not natural. Why is our standard of female beauty actively regressing in age? Why is it shrinking backward toward prepubescent children who haven't even developed yet?
When you map out the timeline, the regression is undeniable. It proves this is a manufactured aesthetic designed to disempower.
Let's trace it. In the 1950s, the dominant sex symbols were adults. Marilyn Monroe was 27 years old when she filmed Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Elizabeth Taylor was 24 in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
Right.
These were women with the bodies of mature, fully developed adult humans. They had curves, they had weight.
Then the cultural shift happens in the 1960s. Enter Twiggy. She was 16 years old. She weighed 90 pounds.
Oh, wow.
She introduced the slender, boyish, highly adolescent body as the new ultimate ideal.
And you'd think that was the extreme, right? Like that's as far as it goes. But today, the regression has wildly accelerated.
It has.
The sources note that runway models now average 14 to 19 years old. Some are as young as 12. 12-year-olds are the faces of global haute couture campaigns.
We have fixed the standard of female beauty at an eternal prepubescent state. Hairless, poreless, curveless, a state of biological immaturity.
But there's a very dark alliance at play here. The research draws a truly chilling connection between this mainstream surface aesthetic and a horrific underground reality.
We cannot view media in a vacuum. While the mainstream media is busy normalizing 12-year-olds as the absolute pinnacle of sexy, a shadow industry is exploding in parallel. The global underground child pornography and sex trafficking industries.
The numbers from UNICEF are a gut pun. They estimate 1.2 million children are trafficked annually across the globe.
It's sickening.
And 90% of them are girls.
1.2 million children a year. And Dr. Durham argues forcefully that we cannot pretend these two spheres, the mainstream media and the black market, are disconnected.
Wait, how are they connected?
They are feeding off the exact same cultural frequency. When mainstream retailers dress toddlers in thongs that say wink wink, when advertising campaigns use preteen girls in sexually suggestive topless poses, when Halloween catalogs market sexy chambermaid costumes to 8-year-olds, they are sending a very specific, very dangerous signal to the broader society.
Let's spell that out. What is the actual signal being broadcast?
They are signaling that children's bodies are valid items for sexual consumption. They are lowering the cultural drawbridge.
Wow.
The mainstream media is effectively acting as an unpaid PR wing for predators, softening the ground, normalizing the exact aesthetics that fuel the black market exploitation of children.
It makes the unthinkable thinkable.
Yeah.
It moves the needle of what society will tolerate.
Exactly. It creates a climate where the hypersexualization of a child is viewed as a bold fashion statement rather than what it actually is, a crime.
I want to pivot to myth number 4, because this myth deals directly with the physical violence that results from this cultural conditioning, the myth that violence is sexy.
This is a huge one in pop culture.
Let's look at one of the most persistent tropes in modern cinema. In almost every mainstream slasher or horror film, why is the female character brutally murdered at the exact moment she takes her clothes off or acts sexually empowered?
It is a trope so common we almost don't even notice it anymore, but it is one of the most disturbing conditioning tools in cinematic history.
We've all seen it 100 times. The teenager sneaks away from the group, she begins to undress, she initiates intimacy, and instantly, bam, the killer strikes, the machete comes down.
But we need to look at the neurological wiring this creates in the viewer. Dr. Durham points out this isn't just lazy screenwriting or a reliance on formula, it is psychological conditioning.
Wait. Explain that mechanism. How does a horror movie trope literally rewire a brain?
Look at the cinematography. Look at the camera angles and the timing. The director is deliberately synchronizing the male viewer's sexual arousal, triggered by the nudity and the intimacy on screen, with the sudden extreme mutilation of the woman.
The arousal and the violence happen in the exact same millisecond.
Yes, it creates a Pavlovian subconscious link in the viewer's mind. It literally wires the neural pathways of sexual excitement together with the visual imagery of violence against women.
That's horrifying.
It frames the murder as a justifiable punishment for female sexuality, and worse, it sexualizes the act of killing itself.
And this isn't just theory, right? This bleeds directly into the real world, into high school hallways. The statistics on adolescent dating violence in the research are incredibly bleak.
1 in 5 high school girls experiences physical or sexual violence from a boyfriend.
1 in 5. Not adults in complex marriages. Girls sitting in geometry class, walking down the hallway.
And here is the ultimate tragedy of that statistic. Only 7% of those girls will ever report the abuse to the police or an authority figure.
7%. That implies a massive systemic failure. Why is the reporting rate so low? Why do they stay silent?
Because the culture has entirely normalized their degradation. They don't report it because they think it's normal.
How is that normal?
Look at the broader media landscape surrounding them. The sources note that on MTV, 90% of videos have sexual undertones. And what do those videos actually show?
Young women in bikinis being tied up, gagged, thrown over shoulders, treated as literal inanimate props.
Exactly. You have professional wrestling programs that routinely degrade women, presenting them as objects to be conquered or humiliated. You have hip-hop lyrics that openly celebrate coercion and dominance.
Right.
You have video games where sexual violence is an interactive feature you get points for. When a teenage girl is surrounded by a multi-billion-dollar media ecosystem that constantly, relentlessly tells her that male violence is just a natural, expected component of sexual dynamics, she doesn't report the abuse. She internalizes it.
She thinks this is just how it is. This is what being a girlfriend means.
The media teaches boys to be aggressors, and it teaches girls to endure.
Which flows right into myth number 5, the heteronormative male gaze. Let's look at the print media. In millions of pages of teen fashion magazines published over the decades, there are thousands of articles teaching girls how to please boys, how to get his attention, how to dress for his body type, how to text him so he doesn't lose interest.
So many.
Why? In all of that print, is there virtually not a single article teaching boys how to respect girls?
Because the game is entirely rigged. The media positions boys as the ultimate, absolute judges of a girl's worth. The male gaze is the only lens that matters.
The research quotes one expert who said, girls are reduced to service stations for boys.
That is the exact brutal phrase used, pleasure providers. The magazines tell girls that their bodies, their actions, their personalities are only valuable if they earn male approval.
But the cruelty of it is that it's a trap, isn't it? It is a game of shame they cannot win.
It is an impossible tightrope. On one hand, the media tells girls they must be incredibly sexy, they must dress provocatively, they must master the performance of being hot to have any social standing.
Right.
But the exact moment they actually act on those desires, the moment they claim any actual sexual agency for themselves, they are instantly slammed with the slut stigma.
So if they are pure, they are invisible. If they're sexual, they are shamed. They can't win.
They cannot. The data shows that 51% of girls admit to compromising their own boundaries, doing things they absolutely do not want to do simply because of male pressure and the fear of social exile.
Over half.
Yes. They're so busy dodging the shame, so busy trying to manage their reputation in this impossible, contradictory system that they have zero space to explore their own authentic, natural desires.
Their entire sexual identity becomes defensive.
Exactly. It is reactive, not proactive. They're just trying to survive the gauntlet.
And let's ask the question about who is entirely left out of this equation. What happens to anyone who doesn't fit this perfect, straight, able-bodied hypersexual mold? What about the actual diversity that exists in the real world?
They are completely erased, and the psychological toll of that erasure is massive.
When I was reading the section on disabled girls, I honestly had to step away. The level of erasure is just...
It's absolute. If a girl with a physical disability tries to embrace her sexuality, if she tries to participate in the culture, the media culture recoils.
Right.
She is instantly treated as an asexual monster. She violates the unspoken code of acceptable appearance. The culture simply refuses to acknowledge her humanity.
The media tells her that she is not allowed to exist in that space.
And for LGBTQ plus teens, the landscape is even more brutal. Because the media presents a monolith of heteronormative perfection. The football captain gets the cheerleader, boy gets perfect. Anyone outside that binary is subjected to massive systemic peer bullying.
Yeah.
The erasure from the media translates directly to erasure and violence in the school hallways.
And the cost is measured in human lives.
We have the statistics. Suicide attempt rates for LGBTQ plus teens are 2 to 3 times higher than their straight peers. When you completely erase a group of people from the cultural narrative, when you refuse to show them a reflection of themselves with a happy ending, you tell them they have no future.
That is the true cost of the Lolita effect. It is a weapon. And as we see in the research on global impacts, it is a weapon of mass destruction.
Without a doubt.
Let's look at the sheer virulence of this media contagion. Imagine a Pacific Island nation that gets Western television for the very first time. Within months, a completely unheard-of disease bulimia explodes among the local girls. How is that culturally or biologically possible?
We are talking about the famous Harvard case study on Fiji, and we really need to linger on this because it proves the devastating power of the exported media image.
Let's build the context. What was Fiji like before the satellite dishes arrived?
Historically, Fijian culture worshipped full-figured, plump women. A robust body was the absolute aesthetic ideal. It represented health, wealth, community care, and beauty.
Right.
Eating disorders, the concept of starving yourself to look thin, were virtually non-existent. It was anathema to their cultural DNA.
So they have a healthy, established cultural baseline. Then, in 1999, the satellite dishes arrive.
Television is introduced. And what is the programming that gets beamed into these homes? Beverly Hills 90210, Melrose Place. The purest, most concentrated exports of the Western Lolita effect. Thin, affluent, hypersexualized white women presented as the pinnacle of global success.
And what happens to the girls watching?
The Harvard researchers watched a cultural collapse happen in real time. Within months, the local girls began intentionally starving themselves. They began vomiting after meals.
Just from watching TV?
Yes! They completely internalized the Western ideal and rejected their own heritage. One girl literally told the researchers, and this is a quote, "I have to work on myself, exercising, and my eating habits should change so that I can be like those characters."
That is staggering.
Yeah.
1,000 years of cultural history of worshiping robust health, overwritten in a few months by reruns of Melrose Place.
And it's a global epidemic. The transnational media conglomerates are exporting a psychological virus.
And we see it everywhere. It's not just Fiji. In Thailand, the sudden influx of Western media clashes violently with traditional values of modesty.
Yes, and the result.
Teen depression rates skyrocket because the girls are caught in a psychological war zone between the traditional expectations of their families and the hypersexualized demands of the global media.
And in Africa, the consequences are measured in a staggering death toll.
The feminization of AIDS.
Exactly. The hypersexualization and commodification of women exported globally from the West meets local vulnerabilities and poverty.
Right.
Girls are told by the media that their bodies are commodities, their only source of value, while simultaneously they're denied the social power to negotiate safe sex with older men.
So it's a trap.
The result is catastrophic. The statistics show that 76% of all HIV-infected youth in Africa are young women.
76%. So let's be perfectly clear. The Lolita effect isn't just an American suburban problem. It isn't just about girls feeling sad in a dressing room.
No.
It is a global tragedy. It is an infrastructure of exploitation that reshapes biology and dictates mortality rates around the world.
Which brings us to the ultimate necessary question. If the system is this massive, this well-funded, and this destructive, what do we actually do about it?
Exactly. How do we reclaim sexual justice? Because clearly, screaming at kids to just abstain doesn't work. The moral panic approach has failed.
Completely.
And as the author points out, simply handing out condoms in middle school isn't enough to counteract a trillion-dollar corporate media monster either.
Yeah.
Both sides of the political debate are kind of missing the elephant in the room.
We have to change the entire framework. We have to stop looking at this purely as a behavioral issue and start looking at it through the lens of human rights.
Right.
Dr. Durham references the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which dictates that children have a right to grow up in an environment of health, understanding, and safety.
The core mission seems to be, we have to decouple sex from capitalism.
That is the essential battle. We must stop pretending that children are asexual robots until they turn 18, and we must stop allowing corporations to define their sexuality for them.
It's biological.
We have to acknowledge that adolescent curiosity is natural. It is biological.
And instead of meeting that curiosity with silence or moral panic, we have to provide shame-free, scientific, factual education.
Exactly. The adults in the room need to step up and reclaim the narrative. We cannot abdicate our responsibility to MTV and Abercrombie and Fitch. We have to provide a safe, honest counter-narrative.
So Dr. Durham provides a 4-step resistance battle plan in the book, an action guide that anyone listening to this can implement today. Let's walk through it. Step 1, media literacy as mandatory.
We teach our kids math. We teach them reading. We must teach them media literacy with the exact same urgency. You sit an 8-year-old down and you show them exactly how Photoshop works.
You break the magic trick. You pull back the curtain.
Exactly. You show them the raw, unedited photo of a model with the blemishes, the normal proportions, and then you show them the airbrushed cover.
Before and after.
Yeah, you explain the lighting, the digital manipulation, the impossible physics.
Yeah.
You explain that the image they're looking at is a digital fabrication. It is a cartoon. It is not a real human being.
Right.
Once a child understands that the image is entirely fake, it loses its power to induce anxiety.
Step 2. Encourage creation.
Break the monopoly. The media conglomerates only have power because they are the only ones broadcasting. So give girls cameras, give them blogs, give them the tools to make their own media.
The research specifically mentions the documentary, A Girl Like Me.
Yes, that is a perfect example. A 16-year-old African-American girl named Curie Davis made that film.
Oh, wow.
She used it to directly question and challenge the standards of beauty imposed on girls of color. When girls become creators, they stop being passive consumers, waiting to be told what is beautiful. They rewrite the script themselves.
Step 3. Multidimensional praise. This is something that starts in our own living rooms. We have to radically change how we talk to girls.
We are all guilty of this. It's deeply ingrained in the culture. You see a little girl, a friend's daughter, or a niece, and the very first thing out of your mouth is, "You look so pretty," or "I love your dress."
We instantly reflexively validate them based entirely on their appearance.
We have to stop doing that. We have to lead with multidimensional praise. Praise their intellect, praise their humor, praise their grit.
Right.
Ask them what they were reading, praise their curiosity. We have to teach them from the ground up that their value is rooted in their character and their mind, not their conformity to a visual standard.
And finally, step 4. Hit them in the wallet.
This is a capitalist system. It does not possess morals. It only responds to capital. I boycott the companies selling hooker chic to 6-year-olds.
Yeah.
If Tesco sells a pole dancing kit for a toddler, you do not politely complain. You do not give Tesco your money. You organize, you lobby, you force the unconscionable products off the shelves by making them unprofitable.
So let's wrap this up. We have been on an incredibly heavy journey today. We started by looking at the literal mathematical impossibility of the Barbie physics. The starving, broken ideal forced upon girls.
We moved into the $160 billion anxiety industry that profits off that broken ideal, and the dark, horrifying realities of global child trafficking that feeds off the mainstream aesthetic.
We explore the neurological conditioning of slasher films linking sex to violence, the tragedy of the 7% reporting rate, the erasure of LGBTQ teens, and the devastating export of bulimia to the South Pacific. It is relentless reality.
But the core takeaway from Dr. Durham's work is that it is a reality we can fight once we see the invisible shackles for what they actually are.
To close this out, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final chilling concept, a thought to mull over as you walk away from this deep dive.
Think about the last time you saw a sassy, slightly mature t-shirt or toy bought for a young girl. Maybe you even bought one yourself as a joke.
Like a pair of sweatpants with Juicy on the back.
Exactly. Or a doll dressed in fishnets. We usually treat it as harmless fun, a micro joke. But consider this, by participating in that microeconomy, are we unwittingly casting a financial vote for a global infrastructure that eventually tells girls in developing nations that their only true capital is their bodies?
Wow.
Your wallet isn't just buying a piece of plastic or cotton, it's funding the blueprint of global girlhood. What blueprint are you paying for?
And suddenly, that murky, confusing landscape of teenage health statistics we talked about at the very beginning, it isn't so murky anymore. We can see exactly where the bones are broken. We can see the multi-billion-dollar machine that is doing the breaking. Now we just have to decide if we're going to keep feeding it. Thank you for providing the research and joining us on this deep dive into the Lolita effect. Take a hard look at the media you consume today. Question everything. We'll see you next time.